My name is Jonathan Blake. I was a proud atheist, a professor, a man of reason. For over 3 decades, I taught young minds that faith was a crutch, that Jesus was fiction, and that there was no such thing as divine intervention, only coincidence and chaos. But all of that changed the moment I missed a flight and watched it explode in the sky without me on it. That was the beginning of my near-death experience. Not because my body shut down, but because everything I thought I knew died. In the days that followed, I encountered something I had spent my entire life denying: Jesus. He didn't come to argue philosophy. He came to expose a spiritual war that's been raging behind the curtain of global events, politics, media, even education. He showed me the hidden agenda behind world systems, the elite forces working day and night to blind humanity with comfort, distraction, and lies. And now I know. I wasn't just spared. I was chosen to tell the truth, to warn you, to help wake you up before it's too late. Before we begin, I want to know something. Where are you watching from? And what time is it where you are right now? Drop it in the comments below. Let's see how far this message is reaching. And if this story already stirs something in your spirit, subscribe now to Truth from Beyond. Because what I'm about to share isn't just a story, it's a revelation. And it may just be the first step in your own awakening. I never believed in fairy tales, not the ones with dragons, and certainly not the ones with gods. My name is Dr. Jonathan Blake. For most of my life, I've stood in front of lecture halls filled with eager young minds, teaching them to question everything, especially the idea of a divine being. I was proud of my reputation. A 52-year-old tenured philosophy professor from Pennsylvania, known for my brutal honesty and unwavering atheism. To me, Jesus was a myth, religion a relic of tribal superstition, and miracles nothing more than psychological coping mechanisms wrapped in fantasy. I built a career tearing down illusions, and I was good at it, real good. That's what made what happened to me so hard to reconcile. My academic work took me to Nagaland, a tucked-away region in northeastern India. I was there to study cultural evolution, especially how ancient tribal beliefs morph under external influence. Ironically, I treated religion the same way a zoologist treats animal behavior, dissecting it without emotional investment. I came armed with notebooks, voice recorders, and an air of intellectual superiority. Faith was an artifact. Jesus was a footnote. Every time someone mentioned God, I mentally filed it under cultural coping mechanism. I had no idea that beneath the chants, traditions, and dusty churches, there was something alive, something watching. I'd seen tragedy before, poverty, injustice, desperation, but never once did I feel the need to reach beyond the physical. Why would I? Everything could be explained. Sociology, psychology, political history. The elite use religion to pacify the masses, I told myself. A hidden agenda to keep people obedient. I taught that. I believed that. We are atoms and impulses, nothing more. Life ends in dust, and the universe doesn't care. And yet, even with all my credentials and cold logic, something inside me, something I buried long ago, felt hollow. Empty. But I pressed on, dismissing it as fatigue. At night, I'd look out over the Nagaland hills and scoff at the flickering church candles below. Delusion, I whispered to myself. Organized deception. The region was poor, but flooded with Christian influence. Converted tribes, missionaries, scripture painted on walls. Still, I kept my distance. The spiritual war people spoke of? Nonsense. A fabrication to control people. I called it out in interviews and lectures. Faith was weakness. Truth came through logic, and nothing else. Or so I thought. But in the quiet hours, when the jungle noise settled, I felt watched, like something ancient and awake was patiently waiting. I didn't realize it then, But I had been marked, not by religion, not by man, but by something beyond reason. My awakening didn't start with visions or voices. It started with an interruption. A single moment that rerouted every plan I had, every thought I trusted. That moment was coming fast, and when it hit, it shattered my worldview like glass. And funny thing, it started with a hotel cleaner and prayer. Her name was Mary. A hotel cleaner, at least that's what her badge said. I barely noticed her at first. Just another local woman sweeping the hallway of a small guest house tucked in the hills of Dimapur. I was checking my itinerary, sipping on bitter coffee, annoyed that the internet kept dropping. But then she said something strange, softly, as if it weren't meant for me. "Sir, have you ever asked why you're still alive?" I turned, confused, and a little irritated. "Excuse me?" I asked. She looked at me, not with fear, not with reverence, but with a calm that disarmed me. I mean, truly asked. "Why you're still here, walking around, while others have already gone?" I laughed it off. Another religious nut, I thought, but something in her eyes felt different. Not blind faith, something deeper. A quiet fire. I tried brushing her off, but she didn't go away. She started talking about Jesus, not in the fanatical fire and brimstone way I'd encountered before. No, this was, different. Personal, intimate. She spoke like she knew him, as if she'd sat across from him, had coffee with him, cried with him. I challenged her, of course, quoted Nietzsche, brought up the Crusades, asked her why a loving God would allow famine, war, and cancer. She didn't flinch. She quoted back verses. "The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but he came to give life." Her tone never changed. Gentle, steady, unmoved. I started to feel uneasy, not because I was being out-debated, but because I was being seen. At one point, I asked her if she honestly believed Jesus could intervene in the world today. "With all the chaos, corruption, and evil," I scoffed. "Where's your God in all of that?" That's when her face grew serious. "There's a spiritual war going on, sir. You may not see it, but it's real. And the enemy's greatest deception is making people believe it's all just coincidence, that there is no war, that there is no truth." Her words hit me like a freight train. Because I'd taught exactly that life was random, survival was chance, and power belonged to those bold enough to take it. But deep down, I was starting to wonder if I'd been duped by something far more clever than religion, an elite system masked as enlightenment. Our conversation dragged on. I missed breakfast. Then I missed my call to the driver. My schedule started slipping. Still, I kept talking to her. She told me about how she used to be suicidal, how she'd heard a voice. His voice. Call her by name in the middle of the night. She said he told her he had a plan for her, that he'd protect her from what was coming. When I asked what she meant by what was coming, she just said, "Revelation is unfolding. The world is distracted. But Jesus is warning those who will listen." I rolled my eyes, but a chill ran down my spine. It wasn't what she said, it was how she said it, like it was already happening. Before she left, she looked me in the eye and said, "You may think I'm just a cleaner, but I know my assignment. I will pray to my Jesus to show you a sign, not to prove me right, but to open your eyes. Because the time is short, sir. The curtain is lifting, and those who pretend not to see will still face the truth." She turned and walked away. I remember standing there, motionless, feeling like something ancient had brushed past me. I shook it off, got back to my work, but nothing felt the same. And the more I tried to focus, the more everything around me began to glitch, like reality was unraveling beneath the surface. I should have made that train. I triple-checked my itinerary the night before, set 3 alarms. I'd never missed a connection in all my years of field work. But that morning, nothing went according to plan. First, the power cut out. Then the driver was late. By the time I reached the station, the train doors were sealed and the wheels were already grinding against the track. I watched it pull away, stunned. My hands trembled, not from panic, but from something deeper. Like the day had been hijacked, every detail so tightly packed into the schedule, now unraveling like thread. And for what? A meaningless conversation with a cleaner about Jesus, about spiritual wars and unseen enemies? I cursed under my breath and demanded a cab to the next town to catch a new route. The next 8 hours were chaos. Roads flooded. A landslide blocked the highway. GPS failed. I bounced between rickshaws and bumpy buses, each one making me later than the last. At every stop, something went wrong. A flat tire, a broken axle, a detour through dense forest. It was as if time itself was conspiring against me. But here's the thing. In the middle of all the frustration, I kept hearing Mary's voice. Not her literal words, just this echo inside me. I'll pray to my Jesus to show you a sign. And that's when the fear crept in. The kind that doesn't come from logic or danger, but from realization. What if this wasn't bad? Luck? What if it was something else entirely? Something spiritual? Something I couldn't control? The deeper I sank into delay, the more intense my thoughts became. I started thinking about spiritual warfare. Not the cartoonish version I mocked in lectures, but the real, quiet kind. The kind that hijacks schedules, flips logic on its head, and whispers just loud enough to get your attention. Something about the way every connection failed, every contingency plan broke, made me question the very system I trusted. I'd always believed in human control, agency, but now it felt like a hand had reached down and scrambled the script. And for the first time in decades, I was afraid, not of missing a flight, but of what it all meant. I blamed the infrastructure, the culture, the weather, anything but divine intervention. But deep down, I felt it. Deception had a face, and I had worn it for years, teaching others that God was dead, that man was supreme, that science was the only gospel worth preaching. But now, that gospel was failing me, one delay at a time. I was angry, sure, but beneath the anger was a gnawing question I couldn't shake. What if I'm the one who's been lied to? What if the real deception wasn't religion, but this illusion of control I've clung to my entire life? By the time I finally reached the next major city, I was days behind schedule. My luggage had been misplaced, my notes water damaged, and my temper gone. But more than anything, I felt hollowed out, like something was preparing me for something I couldn't name yet. Like the missed train was never about transportation, but about timing. And as I boarded the final cab to the airport, I felt it again. That invisible pull. Like the war Mary spoke of wasn't just out there. It was inside me now, and it was just getting started. I was 15 minutes late, just 15. I had sprinted through the security checks, waving my passport like a madman, begging the staff at the Air India counter to let me through. But the gate had closed. "Boarding finished, sir," the attendant said without emotion, as if my entire life hadn't just hinged on those last few steps. I watched through the thick glass as Flight 171 began to taxi down the runway, the heat from the engines distorting the view like a mirage. I felt rage, embarrassment, helplessness, all that planning, all that rushing, all that chaos. And still, I missed it. The irony of it all hit me hard. A trip that had spiraled into madness. Ending. With a closed gate and a coffee-stained boarding pass. I slumped down in the terminal, exhausted. My body buzzed with stress, but my mind was somewhere else. I kept hearing Mary's voice again. I will pray to my Jesus to show you a sign. My jaw tightened. Coincidence, I told myself. Nothing more. The truth, the rational truth, was that delays happen, traffic happens, life is random. Except, just as I was settling into that familiar mental script, a loud chime echoed through the airport. Then the announcement. A calm, almost robotic voice came over the PA. Air India Flight 171 has crashed shortly after takeoff. All communications lost. Rescue teams dispatched. The room fell silent. I froze. I had no thoughts, just this ringing in my ears and the sinking realization that I should have been on that flight. I stumbled toward the nearest monitor, my legs trembling like I'd run a marathon. There it was. Flight 171. Destination, London. Status, emergency. Words I'd used 1,000 times in lectures. Coincidence, luck, random probability, melted in my mouth like ash. I had narrowly escaped death. Not metaphorically, not spiritually, literally. And for what? Because a woman I didn't believe in had prayed to a savior I mocked. No, it couldn't be. That's what my mind said. But my soul knew better. This wasn't chance. It was design. It was intervention. My entire life I had preached against the supernatural. And now, the supernatural had just pulled me out of a burning plane before I even boarded. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept watching news clips on my phone. Rescue crews, flames, smoke, sobbing relatives. All while I sat in a cheap hotel room that reeked of mold and mystery. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared. My brain couldn't process what my heart already knew. I'd had a near-death experience. Not the kind with tunnels and lights, at least not yet, but the kind that fractures your worldview with surgical precision. I kept hearing the word revelation over and over, like something had been peeled back, like a curtain had lifted, and behind it wasn't randomness, but a spiritual war, and someone, Jesus, had reached through that war and pulled me out. I remembered Mary's last words to me, almost verbatim. The time is short. The curtain is lifting. I realized something chilling. What if the crash wasn't just about me? What if it was part of something much bigger, a warning shot in a world too distracted to notice? I thought about the headlines. Wars erupting, governments falling apart, artificial intelligence rising, people turning on each other faster than ever before. Deception, she said. Control by the elite. What if that plane was meant to carry voices like mine into silence? Voices on the edge of awakening. I didn't have answers. But the questions were multiplying. And something told me they wouldn't stop. I didn't talk to anyone for 2 days. Not even my wife, not even my colleagues. Waiting for updates. I locked myself in that crumbling hotel room. Lights off, phone screen dimmed, replaying the crash coverage over and over. Every clip was another reminder. I should be dead. I should have been on that plane. My seat had been assigned. My name was on the manifest. The only reason I wasn't ash scattered over Indian soil was because something interrupted my schedule. Someone. And suddenly, Mary's words weren't just poetic superstition. They were prophetic. I couldn't escape it. Anymore. This wasn't random. It was personal, targeted, like I'd been yanked from death's grip by invisible hands. And I began to feel it. Shame. The kind that doesn't shout, but whispers. How many times had I mocked Christians? Called Jesus a myth? Called faith a disease? I'd built a career tearing down what people like Mary held sacred. I wore my deception like a badge of honor. But now, I felt exposed. Fragile. Like I'd been walking blind through a battlefield, thinking it was a playground. I remembered Mary saying, "The enemy's greatest weapon is to make you think he doesn't exist." And there I was, proof of it. An educated man, a proud atheist, who never even realized he'd been playing right into the hands of something darker, something ancient, something that wanted me dead before I ever saw the truth. That night, something happened. I don't share this lightly. I don't expect everyone to believe me. But I woke up at 3:33 a.m. Exactly. I know because I checked. The room was ice. Cold, though the air conditioner was off. There was no sound, just an eerie, impossible stillness. Then, light. Not from a lamp, not from outside. A presence filled the room, and I knew I didn't see a face, but I felt him. Jesus. Not the stained glass European version I used to mock in lectures. This presence was overwhelming, pure, terrifying, and beautiful all at once. And then I heard it, not aloud, but inside me. You were saved not for your survival, but for a mission. I fell to my knees. I couldn't speak. I just wept. In that moment, I saw things. I don't know how to describe them, but I'll try. I saw nations crumbling under the weight of lies. I saw a hidden agenda at play behind world leaders, media outlets, even some churches, yes, churches, infected with spiritual rot. I saw technology being used not to connect us, but to enslave us. The elite, faceless, powerful, ruthless, manipulating society with fear, distraction, and division. And I saw people awakening. Little lights across the globe, flickering on like stars. People rising, seeking truth. And in the center of it all, Jesus, wounded, radiant, watching, waiting, not with anger, but with heartbreak, like a king who sees his people trapped in chains they've come to love. When I woke up, I was drenched in sweat, but I wasn't the same man. I couldn't go back to my old life, not really. And yet, I wasn't fully ready to step into this new reality either. I was stuck between worlds, still unsure, still afraid, but also aware. Something had shifted in me. The curtain had been pulled back, and I couldn't unsee what had been revealed. I didn't become a preacher overnight. I didn't run to a church altar, but something deeper had begun, a process, an undoing, a humbling. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't looking for control. I was looking for truth. So here I am, telling you all this, not as a man with answers, but as a man with questions, honest ones, raw ones. Was it just coincidence? Did a missed train and a delayed cab truly spare me from death? Or was there something, someone, orchestrating the whole thing? Because if I'm honest, I don't believe in luck anymore. Not after that night. Not after what I saw. Something saved me. Someone stepped in. And if that near-death experience wasn't meant to wake me up, then what was it? I've come to believe that what happened to me was part of a revelation, not just for me, but maybe for all of us. What if we're all moving too fast to see the signs? What if this so-called reality we cling to, our routines, our politics, our headlines, is just a smokescreen? What if the world's elite, behind their polished smiles and global influence, are actually agents of something darker? I used to laugh at such ideas, but now, I don't. Not after being spared. Not after seeing what's being hidden in plain sight. There's a spiritual war happening, right now. It's not in the news, it's not on your feed, but you feel it, don't you? That tension, that shift, that creeping sense that something's wrong and no one's saying it out loud. That's not paranoia. That's your soul trying to wake up. I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm just asking you to pause. Think. Look back at your life. Have you ever had one of those moments? A close call? A nudge in your spirit that didn't make sense until much later? A voice you ignored? A door that slammed shut? And later, you were glad it did? Maybe it wasn't coincidence. Maybe you were being protected. Maybe you were being invited. I believe that invitation is still open. I'm not special, I'm not holy, but I was seen, and so are you. I don't care where you've been, what you've done, or how many degrees you have. If Jesus met me, he can meet you. This isn't about religion. This is about truth. And once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. You start to recognize the lies woven into everything, the entertainment we consume, the political theater we argue about, even some of the sermons we hear on Sunday mornings. That's the deception. It's not about getting you to worship Satan. It's about keeping you from ever meeting Jesus. Because once you do, the awakening begins, and it changes everything. Your priorities, your purpose, your peace. And if you're still watching this, maybe your awakening has already begun. So I'll leave you with this. What if that delay in your life, that heartbreak, that job loss, that inexplicable shift, what if it wasn't random? What if it was a rescue? I'm not here to convert you. I'm here to warn you. Because time is short, the veil is thinning, and soon, everyone will see what's really been going on. The only question is, will you be ready? Now that you've heard my story, I need to ask you something real. Have you ever felt like something unseen was guiding your steps? Like you were saved from something without even realizing it? If so, maybe you're not crazy. Maybe you're being called, just like I was. I survived a flight I never boarded. I encountered a Jesus I never believed in. And I saw a truth that shattered everything I once held sacred. This world? It's not what it seems. There's a spiritual war happening beneath the surface, and the elite don't want you to see it. But once you do, everything changes. So I want to hear from you. Have you ever had a moment where it felt like something was protecting you or warning you? Share it in the comments. I read every single one. Your story might be the sign someone else is waiting for. And if this message stirred anything in you, subscribe now to Truth from Beyond and hit that notification bell. The next video dives even deeper into what Jesus revealed to me about what's coming. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to prepare you. Click the video on the screen now. It's connected to what I lived and what you might be living too. I'm Jonathan Blake. Thank you for listening. And remember, the truth doesn't need permission to find you, but you need courage to face it.